So we're moving on to the second worst team this year, and arguably, stats-wise, we're almost worse than the Browns. We're going with the New York Giants, the 3-13 New York Giants. So they beat the Broncos Week 6, 23-10, which I'm still pretty shocked by. Both are top 5 teams in the draft, so neither of them didn't perform very well. And that sort of killed momentum for the Broncos. Then they beat in Week 11 against the Chiefs. They beat them 12-9, but as a snooze fest. Also, keep in mind that the Chiefs were still going way down. And that game went into overtime, but that was just such a boring game, and neither team did anything. I expected a lot more of the Chiefs, but that's not the reason why I'm talking about the Giants. Yeah, okay, I said that right. And then they beat Week 17. They beat the Redskins 18-10. I didn't watch that at all because there's no point in watching two teams that are out of the playoffs, unless it's the Ravens and the Ravens. So the Giants went 3-13. They were supposed to win the division. They were supposed to go deep in the playoffs, and they were one of the top teams to dethrone Tom Brady and the Patriots. As you can see, that didn't happen at all, as they ranked 31st in points, barely beating out the Browns. 15.4 points per game. So it's about 2 touchdowns per game. 21st in yards with 314. 19th in passing yards, 217. 26th in rushing yards for 97. And, God, where do I start? We're going to go with the injuries. The big injury was Odell Beckham a few weeks into the season. I mean, when your superstar goes out, and if you don't surround Eli with weapons, or good weapons, or at least a superstar weapon, Eli is going to suck. And also when you have a terrible offensive line where I don't know how Eric Flowers still has a job. He just lets guys in, take the quarterback, take Darkwa. And the Giants' offensive line was horrible. Eli Manning, we'll start with him. And one thing I want to get really upset about is, why did Ben McAdoo have a job? Why did he have it for that long before he got fired? Why did Jerry Reese have a job that long before he got fired? McAdoo's play calling was terrible. He lost the locker room. And the media really started. I mean, the media would get to you anyways if you're a New York team that's underperforming. But Ben McAdoo, for ending Eli Manning's starting streak, just for one game, in favor of Geno Smith. And I love Geno Smith. Go Mountaineers. But why wouldn't, even if it was a terrible idea to begin with to bench Eli Manning and end that streak, but if you're going to bench Eli, why didn't you start Davis Webb? I mean, what's the point of drafting him in the 3rd round if you're not even going to play him? I mean, they draft him to be a backup quarterback? I don't think so. So why would McAdoo do that? I have no idea. I think he panicked. He knew he was going to lose his job, so he had to change something. Way too late in the season where it would even matter. Eli Manning, 3,468 yards. 19 touchdowns, 13 picks. So he's battling with Flacco and Bortles for those interceptions. All of them had 13 interceptions. I think he might have had more touchdowns than Flacco. I forgot how many they have. But he got sacked 31 times, 7 less than DeShone Kizer. And I thought that Cleveland line would be better than that Giants line. Eli had an 80.4 QB rating. So it's bad, but it's not terrible. And rushing stats, Darkwa had 751 yards with 5 touchdowns, averaging 4.4 yards per attempt. I mean, Darkwa, he's not going to be your star running back, your star guy who just gets the offense up and going. That's Odell's job. That's Evan Ingram's job. That's Sterling Shepard's job. But I think the Giants, people complain about the running backs not being too good. But I mean, if you don't have a good offensive line, then your running backs can't do anything. And look at the Seahawks. They have to change running backs every year because their line can't block. Wayne Gallman had 476 yards, 4.3 yards per attempt, 0 touchdowns. He had a good game on early part of the season, but after that I didn't really hear his name, and Darkwa got most of the carries. Shane Vereen had a terrible season. 164 yards, 3.6 yards per attempt, and 0 touchdowns. That screwed over my fantasy team. Eli Manning. I remember this when they lost to the Buccaneers. I'm just going to throw this out there. 12 rushing attempts, 26 yards, 2.2 yards per attempt. And as long as there's a 14-yard rushing touchdown, man, the fact that he got into the end zone on a 14-yard touchdown run, I think is crazy because Eli can't run at all. And Eli had 1 touchdown. So that's the second most rushing touchdowns on the team behind starter Orleans Darkwa. So the Giants had 6 rushing touchdowns the entire year. 6. I'm going to let you guys decide that. Receiving statistics, and this receiving core was battered. Odell got hurt with an ankle injury pretty early in the season, got sent to the IR. Sterling Shepard was out for quite a bit. He missed some time. And Brandon Marshall got hurt, and he was out for the rest of the year. I'm going to keep this in mind, and I'll try to remember this. Odell was the 4th leading receiver this year for the New York Giants, and he played, a quarter of a season? He ranked 4th in receiving yards. A guy who was injured at the beginning of the season was 4th. I mean, somehow, I think Odell... Yeah, wow. I think Odell would have been 4th on the Browns also if he played there. Evan Ingram's your leading receiver for yards and receptions and touchdowns. 722 yards and 6 touchdowns. He had a nice rookie year, I'm not going to lie. Fantasy-wise, he didn't do great. I don't know why I'd bring that up, but Evan Ingram's pretty promising, and he helped Eli Manning out. Especially when Eli's only options were Sterling Shepard and Evan Ingram. Sterling Shepard, 59 receptions, 731 yards. So I messed up on that. Shepard had more yards than Ingram. And 2 touchdowns. And I think if Shepard played the full season, he'd have 1,000 yards. And that's really who Eli relied on once Odell and Brandon Marshall were out. And, 2 touchdowns. Shane Vereen, Roger Lewis. So when your 3rd best option is Roger Lewis, what do you expect? With an aging old quarterback with a bad offensive line. And I mean, Eli wasn't great to start out the season. I don't even think he'd be in the top half. But he's a decent quarterback. He just didn't have anything for him to get that offense going. There's not really anyone else worth mentioning. I mean, everyone else is just, they're there. Defense was a problem. Their linebackers were a problem. Eli Apple was a problem. DRC was a problem. The defense was just scattered with problems. Landon Collins, 104 tackles with 1 forced fumble, and let's see how many picks. 2 picks, okay. So Collins had a good season. Roll Tide roll. Darian Thompson, who bursted onto the scene. 75 combined tackles, 1.5 sacks, with 1 interception. I mean, that's not too bad. I think he's a safety to pair up with Collins. Damon Harrison, snacks. He had a good season, 76 combined tackles. As a nose guard, I like that. I mean, I think everyone would, but I think he might be the best nose guard in the game. With 1.5 sacks. He's mostly a run stopper. JPP, he had 68 combined tackles and 8.5 sacks with 2 forced fumbles. Wow. I think if you had to name anyone MVP for this team for the season, it would be Jason Pierre-Paul. he got to the quarterback. Eli Apple, 49 combined tackles, 0 sacks, 0 fumbles, and probably 0 picks. That's why you don't reach on guys who are, high risk, mediocre reward. They took that risk, and it hasn't paid off so far. The Giants should move Apple, because he's causing problems in the locker room, too. B.J. Goodson, 53 combined tackles with 1 forced fumble. So that's your number 1 linebacker. That's not great at all. Even Cleveland has a better linebacker. They have like 3 better linebackers than that. Ross Cockrell, nothing really. Devon Kennard, 41 tackles, 4 sacks. Alright, that's pretty nice. Let's see here. Janoris Jenkins had 3 picks, 2 touchdowns, so that's nice. Cockrell had 3 picks. And I think Cockrell could start for the Giants next year, especially how they have to address a lot of stuff if it comes to the linebackers or quarterback or halfback or offensive line. Damon Harrison had an interception also. Huh, I didn't know that. Darian Thompson had a pick, I already said that. And Olivier Vernon had an interception. And he had 2 touchdowns. Wait, no, 0 touchdowns. I'm giving out false information. And I'll try to find Olivier Vernon on here. 37 tackles, 6.5 sacks, and 2 picks. 2 forced fumbles. Vernon definitely, a lot of Giant players were battling to be healthy. But Vernon had a pretty bad season, especially when he's not living up to that huge contract. When it comes to the draft, we have a 2nd overall pick. I say for Browns, don't take... It depends. So, the Giants should either take Josh Allen, the best quarterback, I think, in the draft, or Saquon Barkley, the best talent in the draft. I think both of those 2 guys are pretty close talent-wise. I think the Giants would want to get a quarterback first, especially since the offensive line is so unpredictable for them. Richburg's good, Pugh's good, but when those 2 guys aren't healthy, look where we're at. Eli is throwing 3 picks a game. The Giants should get new trainers, so not all the guys get injured. But I'd say, if anyone, you take Josh Allen, Saquon Barkley, and if you want to trade down and get a tackle to replace Eric Flowers, like McGlinchey's there, Quentin Nelson's there, he's a guard for Notre Dame. They have a lot to choose from. They could trade down, and I wouldn't be mad with that, because they're only a team 1 year removed from the playoffs, and they're not that different. Not yet. If they need to address linebacker, offensive line, running back, maybe. But I think you'd want to address your offensive line first, and quarterback. That's it for all. Next, we'll have the Colts, and that's it for now. Peace.